Hello, James Madison University. This is your #1 reporter, Cody McGonigal, on your #1 channel for Africana Studies News. Today we go back in time to the Dominican Republic, a country considered a major part of the African diaspora. The Dominican Republic was a major section of the triangular transatlantic slave trade. The majority of slave acquisition came from West African countries such as Ghana, Nigeria, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. After slaves were captured from their indigenous homes in West Africa, many of them were transported to the Dominican Republic for either purchase or transportation to other slave trade centers. The height of Dominican slave trade came around 1790 when Spain left its own colony, leading to a large economic downfall in the country. However, this depression was solved with the arrival of many African slaves to the country, bringing with them large amounts of labor and laboring techniques. The Dominican Republic had a great deal of agricultural potential, and with the introduction of African slave slash-and-burn farming techniques, many Dominican crops were preserved and many African crops were introduced. Some of these crops introduced the sweet potato and the yucca. The arrival of Africans into the Dominican workforce quite possibly saved the entire country's economy and introduced it to new and improved work ethic. Along with the labor-first influence, African race was steadily mixed into the indigenous Dominican race, and from these relations today, about 90% of Dominicans have some African ancestry. Now Rachel has more on Dominican Republic racial discrimination.
Thank you, Cody. The Dominican Republic has struggled with racism against Haitians and blacks for many years. Racialized violence in the Dominican Republic began with the arrival of Haitian workers to the country. Rafael Trujillo, the Dominican dictator at the time, saw the Haitian ancestry of African culture as a challenge to harm the European descendants of the Dominican Republic. As a result of this concern, Trujillo ordered the massacre of 12,000 people that were considered to be or actually of Haitian heritage. After the massacre in October of 1937, many violent acts of racism are performed regularly toward Haitians in the Dominican Republic. The color of one's skin in this country declares which of the 6 racial categories a citizen will fall into: Blanco, Trigueño, Indio, Mulatto, Moreno, and Negro. The country also practices an understood hierarchy among its citizens, with whites placed at the top of the spectrum, blacks at the bottom of the spectrum, and mixed populations in between. The Dominican Republic clearly defines race by creating identity cards that include a person's official classification of race as defined by the Raza. These cards must be carried at all times by Dominicans so citizens may prove their race at any given time.
Well, that sounds like a great mix of races in one country.
Yes, we can definitely see the African influence in the Dominican Republic. Now we will look at a more social aspect of life with Dominique and family values.
Thank you, Rachel. Family life in the Dominican Republic is very similar to family life in Africa. Like most places around the world, African family structure is centered around the man and his lineage. It is a male-dominated society, and this is the most evident connection to the Afro-Caribbean families. As a man in the family, he is the head, makes all the final decisions, and acts as an advisor of sorts to his children about the outside world. A mother, on the other hand, is expected to stay at home and perform wifely duties in the house. A mother or a grandmother is the person who takes care of the children and raises them, teaching them morals and values that they will pass on later to their children. In Africa and the Dominican Republic, it is important for the woman to have a man in their life. Spinsterhood is looked down upon as a taboo subject, similar to homosexuality. Being a man is an elevated position in the Dominican society. It's a very patriarchal society, and the power lies within the man. The women are important in terms of home life and raising the children. That is their main role in the society. In the past, the women were pressured to obey what the man told them, but in the modern day, the men do not mind giving up some power to create a balance within the family. In modern time, women are also not linked to men in their faiths. A woman can create her own path, and though many choose to marry as per tradition. These aspects of the Dominican families are parallel to those that are upheld in Africa, and it is a direct link to their African culture. Many people of the Dominican try to ignore their African backgrounds and deny that there is any correlation between the two societies, but it is hard to run from the obvious relations between the two countries. Families in the Dominican Republic are a cohesive team, a unit in culture and ideological terms. These similarities are overwhelming. The father of the Dominican families is Africa. What a family tree. Back to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Dominique. Now we will hear from our correspondent Joe, who will be sharing some interesting information on the religions of the Dominican Republic.
Thank you, Rachel. The Dominican Republic, like most other islands in the Caribbean, acted as a melting pot for indigenous, European, and African cultures and beliefs. The religions practiced in the Dominican Republic portray the kind of blending which took place, most specifically since the transatlantic slave trade. Like many other regions, the Dominican has been dominated for some time by Christianity, but in more recent times, Protestants and other non-Catholic groups such as Jews and Muslims have experienced population booms in the area. The most obvious link from the Dominican Republic to the African diaspora is voodoo, which is practiced mostly by lower-class rural citizens. Although practitioners prefer not to refer to their religion as voodoo, it does show many relations to Haitian voodoo. But it is important to realize that these are not the same religions. Aspects such as ancestor and spiritual worship can be traced back to their African roots. Voodoo ceremonies in Haiti vary slightly from those in the Dominican Republic. Most notably, the ceremonial music contains different styles and rhythms, as well as different dance rituals. Now back to Rachel and Cody at the ASN studio. Stay happening, Harrisonburg.
Thanks, Joe. This just in.
Breaking news!
At Carrier Library.
In the stacks!
We're off to Devin Harris.
Thanks, Cody, Rachel. I spent the last few days analyzing and researching the music and dance of the beautiful Dominican Republic, searching for its heritage and tracing its roots back to the beautiful tree we call the African continent. The Garland Handbook of Latin American Music, a compilation of historical and factual data and texts, contains a section pertaining to the history and development of the Dominican Republic, with information regarding the development of music and its African heritage. This reference mentions the immigration of 6,000 freed or escaped black slaves from the North American neighbor to the country of the Dominican Republic, then referred to as the Republic of Haiti, in the early 19th century. This influx of African culture undeniably resulted in the blending and melding of African, European, and indigenous lifestyles, creating the culture we now see today. This is evident in the similarities between Dominican and African instruments, such as the hollowed-out log idiophones and wooden drums present in both cultures. Moreover, even the names of the instruments display obvious roots, with instruments such as the Dominican guira, or guiro, stemming from the African gourd. According to Pop Culture Latin America, a reference by Lisa Shaw and Stephanie Dennison, there are several Latino and Caribbean genres of music with African roots. Bolero, tango, merengue are all just a few of the several examples given, specifically for the Dominican Republic. Bolero's inspiration stems from a multicultural mix of African rhythms and early 20th century jazz. While the music's origin is truly Cuban, the style spread quickly throughout the Caribbean due to the extensive geographic and ethnic similarities, specifically referring to slavery. Merengue's origin is much less controversial and profoundly referred to as a Dominican song and dance. It is said to be a combination of European courtship choreography and African body movements, with a blended beat of African rhythms and Hispanic melodies. All in all, African slaves and African culture definitely played a huge part in the formation of Dominican song and dance, thus placing the country irrevocably in the African diaspora of today. This is Devin Harris, Africana Studies News. Stay thirsty, Harrisonburg. Back to you, Cody.
Now we're going to recap on what we've learned about the Dominican Republic.
We learned a lot about history,
Racism,
family structure,
religion,
and music and dance. From all these reasons, we can tell that the Dominican Republic is definitely part of the African diaspora.
Thanks for watching, and this is Rachel
And Cody.
signing off on Africana Studies News.
Good night, everyone.
And then so,
Are we done?
alright, cancel it. And then so,
Are we done?
alright, cancel it. And then so,
Are we done?
alright, cancel it. And then so,
Are we done?
alright, cancel it. And then so,
Are we done?
alright, cancel it.